Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Plank of the Week. These things come around very, very quickly, but don't worry, we won't have to use up all the same names as we did last week because there's been fresh and new planks this week. There's so many of them, I'm not sure if 10 is going to be enough. I'm delighted to say Belinda Lucy returns after a couple of weeks away, and my good friend James Max from the Early Breakfast Show on Talk Radio has also joined us, and you two have never met, amazingly.
We have not.
So
but here we are.
Congratulations and welcome to the Planks panel.
Yeah.
Now, I feel as though, because James hasn't been here for a while, we should let you kick off with your first Plank nomination.
Thank you very much indeed.
Not at all.
I'd like to start off with somebody who I had to say I didn't know who he was, and I probably should do. Maybe I should care. But this is a chap called Maros Sefkovic.
Yes.
He is a Slovak diplomat, but he's also serving as a vice president of the European Commission.
Of course he is.
And he is the guy who's fundamentally said, if you don't come to some agreement or sort out what's happening with Northern Ireland and you act unilaterally, then we are going to have war. We're going to hold you to the letter of the law. And this is a guy who seems not to understand that there are probably some hurried and rushed bits of this piece of legislation which doesn't do any good to anybody. It doesn't help the European Union, it doesn't help the United Kingdom, and it certainly doesn't help the people of Northern Ireland at all. And what we really should be doing is, look, the deal's been done. We've all moved on. Brexit wasn't the big terrible thing that everybody said it was going to be, and in fact, the pandemic has shown that a lot worse things can happen. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
And
especially if you're still in the European Union, you would have been vaccinated by now.
Well, exactly. And we need to have practical solutions. And if people have made mistakes, I'm sure there are mistakes on both sides. But this guy, relic from the past, bit of a cretin, clearly, paid for. Probably still by us in some indirect or direct form.
Yeah, pensions.
Pensions and everything else, and accountable to nobody. He went into the election of his Slovak country, lost the election. Oh, now you have a lovely commissioner's position, and probably very well paid at it.
And also,
as well.
you know what he's threatening? He's basically threatening that if nothing changes by the end of June, which is when apparently the timetable runs out. How many times have we heard that? There's another deadline. You know, apparently we won't be able to sell sausages to Northern Ireland from Britain. So from British sausage makers, they won't be able to sell sausages to British people who live in Northern Ireland, which is in Britain. That's what he's saying.
And which, again, there will be, of course, it's such a wide agreement, there will be things that don't make sense. What you should do with something that doesn't make sense is have a look at them. Tear it up and come up with a new solution. And you don't have to go back to it's the treaty. Just be pragmatic. We've moved on now. We've done the thing, we've done the deal, we've done everything else. Let's move on and let's make sure that we try and do more trade together instead of stoking tensions and being, frankly, cretinous.
All this warmongering sort of rhetoric is actually quite funny because we've seen Macron do lots of willy waggling against the Brits with Jersey, and the sausage wars just kind of follows in that whole no, I'm bigger and stronger Putin thing. But the EU are not interested in a solution. There's no political will for it. So unfortunately, it needs to be scrapped and started again. The EU are just embarrassing themselves.
Well, they keep more or less saying, and you'll know a lot about this from having worked over there, they don't want to lose face. They don't want anyone making fun of them. Well, don't they realise that that's what we've been doing for our entire existence?
But you see, that's the European attitude
of people in Europe.
Yeah, but that's the European attitude, which comes down to this whole losing face, as opposed to, can we just be pragmatic? Can we come up with a solution that really works and is good for everybody? Because you know what? More trade is good for everybody. It's more jobs, it's more opportunity, it's more cooperation, it's everything that we need to have. And in the same way that this guy is being a fool when it comes to negotiating on this particular point, we've also got people who don't want to lose face when it comes to financial services. All the technical expertise is here in London. Don't kill it off, because it's not going to help you by killing it off either.
Right. That's the point. But also, I mean, when you talk about the way that somehow the European Union still thinks that we are part of their organisation, therefore they will punish us for doing whatever it is that we did. You know, I'm sorry. You know, we're not in it anymore, so you can't actually punish us. It's like somebody coming from your old school saying, you know, I'm going to give you 500 lines to do. And you go, actually, no, I left school quite a long time ago. I'm not going to do it. Get lost.
Don't want to hear from you. But then the other thing is, but they'll take our money. Yeah. So, you know, we come up with rules and regulations on travel. We may or may not like them. And suddenly, you know, it's, yes, we'll welcome you. Yeah, why? Because you want our money. You wanted our money on the EU, but you want it on your terms. And it's the same as before. So, you know what? I think we should probably say, actually, let's kick at the travel into touch for a while. let's spend our money here in the
Well,
United
why not
Kingdom.
indeed? If you can find somewhere to go, that is, because if you looked around it, there's hardly anywhere to go because everything's
Israel?
booked up. No, but I mean, Israel was looking good until the old Hamas attacks started coming in. But the other thing about talking about losing face, just before we started this show, ladies and gentlemen, we can tell you, and you'll probably have seen this by the time this comes out, Emmanuel Macron getting slapped around in France when he's out on a walkabout. Have you seen it?
Zut alors, he got slapped around the chops.
Unfortunately, it wasn't by a woman.
It was very funny. It wasn't. It was by a chap.
He was out visiting in the southeastern region of France, apparently, some restaurateurs. So imagine if they're anything like the people in this country who haven't been able to open, for the best part of a year. No wonder he got a slap.
But here, if people were protesting, they're probably just tut. Yeah. Whereas in France, they've either got to burn animals or slap.
Yes, or tyres. They like a tyre burning.
Oh, they love lighting
or a blockade of some kind.
It was such an effeminate French slap. It was so like this, and you thought, take that, you little pot pie. It was just so perfect. And poor Macron, red face, got hurled away by his bodyguards. But it's a joy to watch. It's theatre, and the EU every single day, prove us right. Well,
one of my favourite moments in the whole history of political study is John Prescott. That time when that guy threw an egg at him and he just whacked him, and it was brilliant. I remember I was working at the Daily Mirror at the time.
But John Prescott used to do.
You just think that's great, but that's brilliant, though, isn't it? That's what you want.
Yes, but was that better, or was Chumbawamba when they went over with the bucket of water?
I preferred Prescott punching the guy, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean that was. I mean, to anybody else, that would have been a career-ending move,
but not for him.
Not for him somehow.
No, well, the Brits are all taken with milkshaking now. Forget the slaps and the eggs. It's like take that strawberry McDonald.
Right. Although nobody's had that done for a while, so I don't know whether they're going to move on to something else.
That was reserved only for Nigel. Everybody loved milkshaking Nigel.
Poor guy.
Although I think somebody also then milkshaked Tommy Robinson, didn't they? Which was quite funny as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So there we are. So, Belinda, tell us who your first nominee is.
Right, well, my first nominee is Priti Useless Patel.
I love this. Priti Useless Patel.
And I'm a fan of hers. This woman, I loved all her rhetoric last April. That I'm going to stop the crossings and look to me. I'm doing the great big muscle speech and I'm going to have the sovereignty back of this country and control our borders. No, she hasn't.
No.
In fact, even worse.
It's got worse.
It's got so much worse. And that's not even the reason why she's my plank this week. She's my plank, apart from that monstrosity of a failure to control our borders, is that she, I think it was yesterday, urged social media companies to take down footage of people filming migrants
putting on TikTok.
Crossing because it glamorised the journey. I tell you what glamorises it, love. It's sending the Navy in to French waters to scoop them up and bring them back to their shores, escorted in a chariot, back to our shores. That's glamorising it, accommodating and feeding people who mostly want to try their luck.
But I don't know what's worse here. So on one hand, you've got that. So the French escorted the boat over, even though it was really close to the French shores. So a strong foreign secretary would be saying to the French, look, this is not acceptable. You cannot bring somebody, there must be a line in the middle where, of course, we are people's safety, but you don't just drag them across the channel so that you can dump the problem on us. So that would be a strong. And secondly, on the borders, what a total shambles we have had since COVID began. Yeah. How can you not organise it? How on earth?
Well, do you see today
when you've got less or fewer people, can you not organise and know who's coming into the country and how long they're staying for?
No idea.
Well, there's a massive problem, not just because of the people who land and get picked up by the border force, but there are loads of people who actually don't go anywhere near the border force because I know what it's like down in those parts of the world, and there are lots of beaches where the dinghies just pitch up, and the people get out the dinghy, you just run into the town,
and let's
you
be
never
honest,
see them again.
These are
Nobody knows where they are.
They're mostly young men. Thousands and thousands of young men. Is anyone asking the girls, the women, the teenagers in these areas where these men from war-torn countries with very different attitudes towards women are suddenly disappearing into our local towns and villages? No one asks us how we feel about it.
Well, did you see the kids on the front page of the Telegraph this morning? These little kids looked lovely, actually, but they looked pretty healthy. They looked reasonably well looked after, and they were waving and smiling to the cameras, and I have nothing against the children, but, this is now on an industrial scale.
Yeah. But they're also using children on an industrial scale to do that.
Yeah, but they're basically moving people around the world, for all sorts of reasons, and they've now worked out that it's a very easy thing to do to get them into Britain, because once they're here, they'll never leave. There's about 1,500 people that the Telegraph was reporting on today who have not been judged to be admissible under asylum, right? None of them have been taken back by Europe, because they're supposed to take them back, but they're just not doing it. So we're stuck with them.
How much do you think Priti Useless is useless? Because whatever her rhetoric, she doesn't have the confidence of her staff, who then undermine what she does.
The civil service, they need re-educated, just like the BBC staff. They all need re-educated, and they have far too much power. And so I think that's not helping. Our border force
part of that, but
useless.
I think also there's the legal framework. The legal framework does not allow us to actually even, with any certainty, look at somebody coming on a dinghy and saying that's illegal. Because a human rights lawyer will say, actually, it's not illegal because you can get in a boat, you can sail across the channel, and you can claim asylum in Britain, even if you've lived in France for 4 years, because there's no law that says you can't. Because like everything else that we deal with, the asylum laws are about 50 years out of date.
The 1951 Refugee Convention was a totally different time where mass migration and people smugglers making billions out of human trafficking just didn't really exist.
The only people that had dinghies in those days were the army.
Well, the army, but since 1990.
Or maybe the Navy.
1998 in this country, a quarter of Islamist terrorists in this country have gone through our asylum process and have either been rejected or accepted. That Libyan who knifed those poor three gay guys in Reading, he was an accepted asylum seeker who'd been able to commit crimes and still stay in this country. The whole thing's broken, and Priti Patel has to take accountability.
And she has. I mean, she's not like she's only been in the job a short time. She's been in the job quite a long time now, and I appreciate it's a hard job. But as Anne Widdecombe pointed out the other day, it's not as hard a job as it used to be because they've now siphoned off justice out of the Home Office. So she's not in charge of absolutely everything.
Well, she's not in charge of absolutely everything, but I think the problem is that she's so concerned about making sound bites and making commentary about saying how important it is to do certain things that she's forgotten that in fact she needs to set the strategy. And the strategy is wrong. And because there is no strategy, it makes it difficult to execute. And because it's difficult to execute, it means nothing gets done.
Well,
and that's the problem. If you're going to play the soundbite game, then don't do that job.
Exactly.
Also, unlike all of us, she hasn't, I assume, really worked. I don't really count her parents' shop as a business. She hasn't really worked in a business where you have to look at what the problem is, how you're going to fix it, right? She should be going to the Justice Secretary and saying, this is what we need to do. These are the changes in the law that we need to make. This is how we get out of the European Court of Human Rights. This is how we stop these mad lawyers from stopping us from deporting people.
It's not just the British taxpayer that gets screwed over. The real victims, the ones that are really persecuted and too poor to travel and shop around safe countries to where they'd like to stay, they're stuck in these conflict zones. The Yazidis, Christians, gays, girls, they never get a look in. You know, we leave them and we've spent all this money on the wrong people. So I think the whole thing needs to be reset.
We often spend money on the wrong people.
Well, absolutely right.
That's often the way.
I've done a bit of that in my time, spent money on the wrong people.
No, really. What's her name? What's her name?
Are they one of your blanks?
The innocents wouldn't like it. Now, speaking of people who are a waste of money and time, Jenny Eclair. Now, I don't know much about Jenny Eclair, apart from the fact that she used to be a comedian. I mean, I don't know what she does now. I don't know whether she still writes books or whether she still does shows.
I think she does all of the above, but complains about new talent.
Does she?
Having come through and not having to had work in the same way that she and maybe others had to.
Really?
Yes.
So she's a bit of a has-been then, in other words. Washed up.
Yeah, washed up or never was.
Oh, perhaps never was. I never found it particularly funny. Anyway, this weekend, she did what many people are doing at the moment, which is basically, flip her lid over something to do with COVID, because she's one of those who thinks that everybody should be wearing a mask in public. However, she did it in quite a foul-mouthed way, which ordinarily I would applaud. But this is actually quite a nasty tweet. She put out this tweet at 5:08 on Saturday. Why don't all the C word, plural, who don't want to wear masks on public transport travel in the same C word carriage, rather than making the rest of us feel peed off and on edge? I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, we've all travelled on public transport at some point recently. I mean, if I'm on the tube, I wear a mask. But what I don't do anymore is wear it all the way through the station. I now just put it on for when I'm actually on the train. And I don't wear it on the platform or on the escalator or anything like that.
Oh.
Because I've had enough of it. And it's also, I find it really suffocating. I just don't like it.
Nobody
said anything. I mean, if I'd done that probably a month ago, I think people would have said, put your mask on. But they don't now.
I think we are moving towards the end of masking.
Yes, but I think to be that rude about people, because as people pointed out, well, there are lots of people who might be not wearing a mask for lots of reasons. Now, she says, I'm only talking about those who don't want to wear them, as opposed to those who have a good reason for not wearing them. But I think the problem that we've got in this country now is there are too many people who are too nosy about what everybody else is doing. You know, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Well, but don't ever go at somebody who isn't.
Well, I think there is an element of... First of all, if you're going to have a rule, then you need to make sure it's enforced. but it's not down for individuals of the public to start tutting and getting cross with other people.
Well, it starts to get tricky as well, because if Jenny Eclair is presumably not a black belt in karate or something, but I mean, if she starts going up to people and having a go at them, there are some pretty nasty people out
exactly.
there. Yeah. I bet she's a right old snitcher as well, one of those snitching little curtain twitching,
we've had a lot of that
dobbing your
going on.
neighbours. I bet she's the queen of the snitches. I'm sorry, but to be that aggressive, and these hashtag be kind types are always, the quickest to hate. Yes. And I'd far rather be in the carriage without masks. I think it'd be a lot more fun than actually being stuck in a carriage with mask-wearing, frightened, panicky rabbits in the headlight.
Oh, I know, absolutely right. And in fact, there's another one, because I wasn't quite sure whether I could do these two separately, but I think I'm going to do them together, but put them under the Jenny Eclair
Is that allowed?
Umbrella.
Well, it's his show.
Well, I can do anything I like. Yeah, exactly right. See, James knows. He's got a show as well called Between the Sheets, which you should do, actually. You should get her on that. There's a woman called Kate Mulvey. I don't know if you know her. She writes for The Telegraph. She wrote a piece at the weekend about people who hadn't been vaccinated, basically saying that she would never ever dream of inviting somebody who hadn't had a vaccination to a dinner party in her house. And you're just going, what is wrong with you? You know, either you have friends or you don't have friends. So now you're going to pick your friends based on whether or not they've had a vaccination.
I mean, if somebody doesn't want to have the vaccination, surely it's their choice.
Well, exactly.
I do understand that there's a very small chance that, this thing will continue and all the rest of it. But we also know the stats that, generally speaking, if you've had both doses of the vaccine and it's effective, you are far less likely to catch it. And you're even less likely to be hospitalised and even less likely to die.
Yes. So, but there is this narrative, though, isn't there?
But you could die from anything.
Well, of course. I mean, you could invite somebody around for dinner and they have a heart attack in the middle of it. Sometimes that happens.
Well, that could happen after one of your hilarious jokes.
Well, it could happen. It could very well happen.
Anything could happen after one of those.
Oh, it's such snobbery, though. Look at it. It was the same with Brexit. It's going to be the same about climate change. Oh, I'm not having the people that have petrol cars run for supper.
Yeah, please don't bring your petrol cars to park on my
these dinner parties, the Foreign Office drink stews, all these people who attend these things are actually incredibly prejudiced against, I think, working class, normal Brits who don't give a fig about a lot of these
ordinary people.
Why do we use the term working class anymore, though?
Because
I don't think it actually means what it used to mean.
Well, yeah, I think you kind of know what it means.
Yes, I know, but what we should really be talking about is instead of saying the only normal people are people you don't know very well. But what I would say, though, is when you're talking about...
I think normal's a word you can't use anymore, can you?
Well, let's hope not.
Oh, God.
Because compared to what?
Compared to what? But people who work... So instead of saying the working class, it's actually people who need to work, have to work, want to work. Those are the people who very often get marginalised around the edges because of all these other things which are going on. So I think when you start to talk about the working class, in fact, there are people, who are all sorts of different levels of wealth, if you like, who are curtailed from doing what they're doing, either because their parents wanted them to do better. It's not my choice where I was sent to school, aged 5 or 7 or whatever it was. I didn't say, well, mummy, daddy, I'd like to go here or there because I'd like to speak a certain way. You don't have that choice. So to be discriminated against for that is just as bad as discriminating against somebody who went to another school and doesn't have an accent that
well, how about
people
you don't discriminate against people?
Exactly.
Huh?
And unfortunately, the ones that have all the power tend to be the dinner party lot. I mean, until Boris managed to get in, we were run by the chattering metropolitan, I don't know what to call them now, but you know exactly what I mean.
The Notting Hill set.
The Notting Hill set. I remember first being asked to do any questions for Radio 4, and they couldn't believe I was a Brexiteer.
Really?
They were shocked. I think it was David Dimbleby who does that. He was like, what are you doing in the Brexit party? Because I spoke a certain way. And that kind of thing made me think, oh my gosh, you really put people in boxes.
But it's been a terrible shock for an awful lot of them because they can't believe, one, that people like you are in the Brexit party, or were, and also can't believe that their side lost.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
They still don't get it. They don't understand. They don't get it, and they think that anybody who voted against it doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And particularly the younger you are.
I mean, you talk about let's move on. I mean, these are the people who won't move on.
No.
The likes of Andrew Adonis and AC Grayling, and all these nutters. They are literally crazy.
They are
driven insane.
They have a syndrome. They've passed all the steps into denial and all the rest of it and grief, and now they've just gone bonkers.
Yeah, they have. They literally have.
But also, as the stats come in, that Britain is making great progress economically, in terms of all sorts of world trade, international trade, and I don't think people have realised how much our world has changed as a result of the technological advances which have been driven through the pandemic and COVID and all these things. The world that we're going to be sort of back into is going to be completely different, and we are in a much better place to tackle it.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. And we've come back around to your second nomination.
Hooray.
as a result of that. So
I'm going to talk about somebody, and I don't know very much about this or the individual or anything else, but what I do know is that this kind of plankery are people who have little or no consideration of others. So this story is one example of it, but there are plenty. So the one example that I want to pick is there's a farmer who wanted to get into his farm, and some individual...
Oik, you can
I was going to say oik, and then I thought, no, I won't use that pejorative
because we're not going to be judgmental.
Although I have seen the picture of him...
You were busy that night anyway, Mike.
In his shorts with his top off.
He didn't have a shirt on, in my
Exactly,
view.
shirtless.
You know, walking around shirtless.
I don't care how
it's
many...
It's not the done thing.
No, exactly. I don't care how many cakes you've got. No, you wear a shirt. Anyway, so he wasn't wearing a shirt, he was shirt. So he'd parked his car in front of a farmer's gate, so the farmer couldn't get out. The farmer then gets his rather expensive piece of machinery, and it's like a forklift thing, and it pops it over.
It's a forklift tractor, isn't
it? And then just flipped it over his gate, off his land. Get off my land! Onto the country road, and then in said manoeuvre, I think the driver was trying to berate him or do whatever, and got knocked over.
But he was trying
in the
to kick
process.
the forklift a couple of times.
Yeah, he was. I mean, idiot.
I mean, I presume there's some kind of history between these two guys.
I don't
that
think
it's not
there
the
is.
first time he's done it.
Well, I think it's not the first time that the farmer has been blocked into his land.
Right.
And I think that farmers get a very bad rap because they've got a very busy and difficult job to do. They're trying to keep the land safe. They have all these paths that people can just walk through. We've got a lot more people who are using the countryside. Great, that's very nice. Use your countryside. But be respectful. So this then links into the other side of it, that if you're anywhere near the coast or an area of natural beauty. So a lot of people have been coming to visit. I get it. I understand why, because everybody's going crazy.
Are you saying
indoors.
you live in an area of natural beauty?
I know.
He said modestly.
Who knows?
It is now that you're there, right?
You haven't been tutting at all the walkers, have you?
No, I haven't been touching the walkers.
Street Porter, have you?
No, I have been tutting, however. People have been visiting the seaside, and the bins get full, and then they think that it's okay to either leave their crap on the bin, or on the beach, or next to the bin.
Yeah, that's shocking.
Take it home with you. It's
Yes.
not difficult. In the same way that we would berate dog owners for not picking up the dog's poo, I would berate, all the tourists and the people who are the day trippers who come down. Take your stuff home with you. Do not leave it on the beach. The sea won't wash it away and then it's gone forever. It'll wash back up again. Same with fishermen. Take your rubbish away with you. Stop leaving it and stop fishing on beaches where, all the tourists are, people are coming to swim there. Just be a little bit more aware of those around you. So if you're visiting the countryside, don't park where you shouldn't. If you're visiting a village, be respectful of the villages and the people and the people who live there.
Yeah.
And if you're going to an area of natural beauty, take your rubbish home.
It's funny, actually, because we did a story the other day about a pub in Devon, which at first I thought was doing the wrong thing. But then the more I thought about it, I thought, actually, it's the right thing. And it was this little town in Devon, and the pub only had 7 tables. And they had a sign outside saying locals only, right? So if you went down there as a tourist, you couldn't get into the pub. And I was talking to somebody about it, and they said, yeah, but if you went to the Horseshoe, which is our sort of local pub, and they suddenly said, sorry, Mike, you can't come in today because it's full, which is a place I go at least twice a week, maybe sometimes more. Had a birthday party there and all that, I wouldn't be happy either. So actually, I think there's something to be said for sort of local usage of a place. And I know that if you live in a seaside resort like you do, you're going to have to put up with some of that. It's a bit like if you have a beautiful house that happens to back onto, Salisbury Plain. You might see a few tanks rumbling by every now and again. If you live near an airport, you're going to get planes. But I think you're absolutely right.
I disagree.
People are not.
You would?
Well,
How
this is
can you
good. I want you
disagree?
to disagree with me.
I disagree. I think if you have a pub, then during busy time, the locals should be like, well, can I book a table? Because I know it's going to be busy time.
Yeah, but it's quite a small place, though. 7 tables only.
I think there you're suddenly discriminating now against
But you're not
people
but we've gone off. But
Yeah.
you're not disagreeing with my premise, which is if you go and visit a place, be respectful.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that, but I also think that council should provide bigger bins during peak seasons on beaches. I think it has to work both ways. I think there's constantly, it's all up to you to take your rubbish. That's all well and good for us to say,
the locals
but
end up
people
paying for
won't.
that. The locals end up paying for that because if you're going to have more collections and more everything else, if you provide a certain amount of
We
stuff...
mean the council actually have to do some work.
No, I was
well,
gonna
yes,
say,
but the
can't they
council
just
do lots
manage
of work.
their money properly, and also there will be people, sadly, who always will leave their rubbish. And I think in peak
It's the same.
seasons,
You get,
to add a few more bins, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. No, I think it's an interest. The whole thing is interesting. I agree with you. I'm not saying that you're wrong. whatsoever.
Good.
But you know,
I agree with you
not to
too,
say-
but I think
it's
a
not to
little
say that
bit,
you
you know,
won't
there
be
are
wrong
some
in the future,
sensible
or that you have not been wrong in the
solutions.
past.
But there is a point, though, just on pubs, where there's a range of Suffolk pubs who are getting very upset about people who are booking tables and then no shows.
And they're not showing
And
up.
I think that in an industry that has really
ridiculous.
suffered
I agree,
and
that's
has done
awful.
everything possible to
Yeah.
open, I would support the pub industry and say, actually take deposits.
Yeah.
Well,
and
a lot of
keep
people
the
are doing
deposits.
that.
Yeah, they're
now.
starting
A lot
to,
of
yeah.
people are
Keep
doing
the
that.
And
deposits.
cancel tables if 10 minutes late. So
Yeah.
you've got to do that. They're struggling
That's
on
the
their
only
knees,
kind of
the
cancel
pubs, yeah.
culture that I am accepting.
Yes.
Yes,
Fair
that's
enough.
exactly.
Okay, we're getting very excited today. So let's have your second one, Belinda.
Right, my second one is Bob Geldof.
Bob Geldof.
Or Bob the Snob,
Who could
as I
forget?
like to call him.
isn't he Sir Bob?
Oh, Sir Bob, fine, but he
But except
is...
technically he's not really, is he? 'Cause he's Irish. He can't use it, apparently.
Oh, well, he probably threw it in the bin anyway. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Stuck
Bob...
two fingers up at it.
He is a vomit fest. For me, he is one of the most cringe-worthy
What's he done now?
celebs. Need to get out of my system.
Wow.
Right, I mean, forget about
do we
him.
need to leave the room?
No, I want to hear this.
No, yeah. Bob's wound me up. So, 2 days ago, he was on camera with this whole cut to the aid budget thing that the
God.
Tories are putting through, 0.7
Yes.
down to 0.5, which, by the way, is still,
It's
vast
plenty of
amount of
money,
money
yeah.
and far more than most countries.
And I would say absolutely cut it.
And absolutely cut it. So Bob comes on and he does his usual soup of sick, ramming down the throats of the poor British public, emotional blackmail
Yeah.
tactic. And he's like, you're stealing the bread out of the starving children in Yemen. You're taking the textbook from
Have
the
you
child
seen
in
what
the
they
tin
spent that money
hut."
on?
And I'm like, shut up one moment, Bobble-lobbles. You, mate, you know full well most of this money goes to subsidising countries with space programmes
Yeah.
and nuclear programmes. A lot of this money doesn't go to help saving lives. It goes to furthering British interests and their influence. And
Yes.
Enough. That money, let's give to the British people, which our government has the priority to protect their interests first. Ring fence the money that does save lives, outside the UK.
Yeah, but
That's
I mean,
fine. But
on
Bob,
the other hand, I know that lots of people think that we should be doing this, but we've got plenty of lives to save here. Why do we have
well,
to
this
save
is my
everybody
point. But
else's
Bob
lives?
doesn't give a toss about the lives
No.
here. And I'm
But also, I get very irritable, and I think you're right to pick it out, where you have people who have made so much money that they can then stand on their platform to then make these comments about the rest of
Yes.
us and
Yeah.
how it's right to spend this money in this way. I would like to see money that we allocate, rather than say, and I hate it when politicians say X percent will be spent, because then you are forcing money to be spent probably on the wrong things. I would much rather have a set of objectives where they talk about and say, this year we will try and save X number of lives. This year we will try and...
Yeah, but why though? We don't need to do that, and
well,
we
I
can't,
think,
and you
I think
can't
we
really
do have
measure
a,
it anyway.
No, but we do have a responsibility, I think.
Do we?
Yeah, I think so.
Why?
To do certain things elsewhere,
Yeah,
and if
I
it does
agree with
further
you.
our
Why do
interests,
it?
because we're one of the richest countries in the world, and
Yeah.
actually the mismanagement of previous governments and this government in helping our poor has also come into play at why so many are in squalor in this country. But it is essential, and I also believe it's our duty to help really struggling people that are far worse in war zones and things like that in
But
other
what
countries.
What are Oxfam for? What don't you save
Well,
the
you
children?
don't know
for?
where the money goes.
have you seen?
Well, I know where the money goes. It goes into their buildings in London and New York and
Well, it
everywhere
rather
else.
goes into nefarious activities overseas,
Well, that's
which is
another
why they're
story.
having real problems
Oh.
That's another
raising money.
story.
Look, I do agree that agencies is probably a much better way for us to do it if they were run properly. But I also think that we do have a moral responsibility to do certain things in a globalised world. But I think we need to stop spending money in a way that is not accountable.
Yeah.
And I also think that people do need to have fixed targets and objectives in the same way that a business that's going to go and do things, they will say, this is what we're going to do,
Yeah.
this is how we're going to do it, and this is how you can measure our success.
Yeah.
We don't do that with government money. They seem to just be able to
No,
spend
you just
it.
hand it out.
Yeah. And the British are incredibly charitable people. We are, I think, the third most generous out of all the countries
Yeah.
in the world in foreign aid.
Yeah.
We're in the top 10 at the most charitable people. We
Yes.
give the most to charity.
Right.
And we keep getting told we're bad people, not giving enough, we're not spending
Well,
enough
it's all our fault
on
as
people
well.
outside of the UK.
I know.
But that's
Right.
also off the basis of we have a much higher tax base than many of the countries who give more.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we
Well,
do
Mark
need to look
Littlewood-
at this in the round.
Mark Littlewood from the IEA was on Talk Radio the other night, and he gave a great explanation of what this is all about. He said it's about poor people in rich countries giving money to rich people in poor countries.
100%.
And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't get beyond, it doesn't trickle trickle down to the people in Yemen, who happen to be getting bombed by Saudi Arabia. I mean, if you really want to stop it, maybe you should stop selling them arms.
Well,
that's a different story.
But then, of course, there are so many trade
So what
deals and
are we
various
selling
other
arms?
things.
So take the money from the arms sales and give it to the kids so they don't starve.
But then, of course, you had the government defending all of that, saying yes, but look at the jobs that we defend, by making this
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, and the worst of it is these
It's all a
millionaires
mess.
are constantly they're like Gary Lineker
Also,
preach steroids. You've got
Geldof.
Geldof Gary, and the God complex.
Yes.
I mean, this Bob has got a bigger God complex than Femi and Bono put together. He just is this Messiah thing, and he's not the Messiah.
Sorry. Pause moment. Have you just dropped the F-bomb?
I dropped the F-bomb.
Did you?
I meant that rather sort of irritating little
I didn't
puppy
hear
that
that.
keeps snapping at the ankles of Brexiteers.
I see. No, I didn't hear that.
No, Femi.
Oh, I heard that one. I could hear it from a mile off.
Oh, sorry. No,
Came out in hives.
He'll start moaning about being mentioned again. No, but I mean, this is the thing. The point about
He
all of
loves
this.
it.
I mean,
It's this Messiah
Ethiopia
complex
has
that's
still
too
got a
much.
famine going on, right? When was Live Aid?
1985.
1985, right? So that's roughly 36 years ago. So all the money that they raised at Live Aid didn't do anything.
But it made
What does
a
that
lot
tell
of people, it made a few people very famous.
Yeah.
It did. And
Well
it made
done
a lot
there.
of people very wealthy.
Yeah.
And Bob Geldof was one of them. Anyway.
Well done, Bob.
So he's my plank, I'm afraid.
Well, I think that's a very, very good one.
That's a strong plan.
That's a strong plank.
My next one has to be Grant Shapps, I'm afraid. I mean, a more hapless minister you could not wish to find. I mean, this is a bloke
hang
who-
on a second. Failing Grayling.
No, Grant Shapps is much worse. Don't forget, this is the same guy who was, when they announced Spain going into quarantine status in Spain, as the actual Secretary of State for Travel.
He was there.
For transport. He didn't even know they were going to do it because they don't let him into the room. I mean, he sits
It's
there
best
literally
not.
outside with his schoolboy's cap on, waiting to be told what transport
Oh,
policy
now,
is.
could we-
If you're the minister,
Can we
you're
have a
supposed to
minister
be
off
making
then?
it.
Okay, let me give you another minister to
Go
see
on.
whether it's worse, just because
All
then
right.
we need to test this. So
All right.
I would say that if you had to replace one minister, so you've come up with Priti Patel.
Yes.
You've got
Sorry, Priti, I like you, but come on.
yeah, I like you too, but still, but we love you. But then you've got Grant Shapps.
Yeah.
And you probably can't pronounce the S word that you might. And then you've got Gavin Williamson.
Yes.
Oh, Gavin.
Well, he's
Oh,
not very
gosh.
good either.
No, terrible.
think
I
in
would
this-
have him fired.
Yeah, but in this particular week, given loads of people went to Portugal on holiday on the basis that it was the only green country they could go to,
Yes.
Which then gets turned amber.
But that
while
was daft
they're
as
there.
well.
They're there.
You know,
I mean, talk about
what?
going. This is like
But
self-harming.
then why did they go in the first place?
Well, because they were told absolutely categorically that the green status of countries will not change.
Yeah.
They were told that. And they were also told that there would be a warning of plenty of time if it did change.
And
they were
apparently,
not
yeah.
given either of those things to be true.
And apparently the Portuguese are absolutely livid
Of course they
because
are.
Oh, they're beside themselves.
they broke EU rules to allow that the crowds at the football game over in Portugal.
Yes.
And for us, they broke it for us
Yeah.
and to help their tourism industry.
Right.
So they hired
Yeah, but
loads
that's
of staff.
that's because the Europeans wouldn't let the match come here, even though they should have done.
Well,
But that's because
it-
they didn't want to come to Britain because it was outside the EU.
Well, quite.
You know, that was the point.
But think of
because
all the staff now they have to lay off that
Yeah.
they hired for the summer
Right.
because Britain, this is our oldest ally, Portugal. This
Yeah.
is not something we should be doing to a friend.
No.
So I think it was an act of harm to relations.
We
Pointless,
should
there's
never
no
have
coding.
made them green in the first place.
Oh, we
Why
should have
not?
made all of them green from now
No,
on.
no,
Well,
course they
we
should
should
be
either
green.
make them green or not
No,
green.
but listen, the policies in Europe right now are that if you can travel between individual countries, we can go to Spain tomorrow, and we don't need to show them a vaccine passport of any kind. You don't have to show that you've had a negative test. You can just go.
Yes.
But here's the problem. When you come back here, you have to quarantine.
Oh,
Why?
but worse than that, because
Why?
say, for example, France. So you say you can go.
You can.
I'm supposed to be going in 3 weeks. No, cancelled. All my travel plans cancelled. I got the thing saying we're not going
Are
to
you
be travelling
flying?
there. No, I was going on a boat.
Ah, well, you see, you should be driving. I had a guy on the
Yes,
show
I
the
was
other day
gonna drive.
who went on the Eurotunnel
Yes,
thing.
and that's
right?
been cancelled as well.
Well, no, he called me from Greece, right? He's in Greece with his family.
Oh.
He came off the train in Calais. He said there was nobody there. They literally waved him through. He didn't get asked for any papers. He went right through Belgium, nothing, no border checks. Went to Germany, no border checks. Drove into Italy, went to Brindisi, got on the ferry. The first person that asked him for any papers was in Greece,
Wow.
right? So if you want to drive across Europe, now's the time to do it.
Oh.
Just put your car
If
on the
only.
train. Just put your car on the train, and apparently nobody bothers you.
No. And I get why
that's why I think people are so upset about this because it's so inconsistent.
And it doesn't make sense anymore.
But there are so many. When it comes to travel, though, we have seen the levels of incompetence have been absolutely magnificent.
Staggering.
So when you have a look at it was only last week that Heathrow decided that they were going to have a red terminal. It's just like, why has it taken you 14 months to work this out?
What are they doing with their time?
Yeah, but even that's not a very good idea because the red terminal is where everybody mixes, right? From all sorts of different countries. They're all standing next to each other. They're sitting next to each other. Again, you talk to people who have come through the system. It's ridiculous. It's pointless.
It is a pointless system. And then the other thing about quarantine, which is so stupid. So you quarantine when you get home, but you've used all manner of transportation methods to get home. Well, either it's contagious or it's not.
Well, it's not, is it? And what about Michael Gove? Michael Gove decides when he comes back from Portugal to see the Champions League that he's been pinged by the app because he was in close contact with somebody who had COVID, right? But he's not quarantining. Do you know why? Because he's invented a new trial system whereby if you test yourself every day, you can just go about your daily business.
Great. So now we know that.
So,
Let's do it.
So why couldn't they have given all of those systems to the people from Portugal and just say, look, instead of worrying about quarantining when you get back, just come back when you were planning to. We'll give you a test that you have to take every day, and as long as you're clean, you can keep coming out.
And it's all well and good the government saying, "Oh, staycation, keep the money in the country." Have you tried booking a holiday? There's 6 of us. I can't book a holiday in Devon or anywhere nice. The price has gone sky high. Everywhere's fully booked.
Exactly.
So sorry, staycations are out for a lot of people.
We're thinking of going to Scotland.
Wow.
But, I mean, even Scotland is well.
I love Scotland. I've just spent time with those.
Well, we went to Turnberry one Christmas and it was great. And they've got these great lodges there. You'd love it, actually, if you haven't been already. But the thing is, it's not easy now to book anything because everything's booked. Everything.
No, everything's booked.
I would say Grant Shapps and Gavin Williamson's very similar because both have no idea what they're doing. Both are not told what their policies are going to be until the last minute when they have to then go on television.
But then there's another example,
and they don't know. Grant, if you ask Grant
by the civil service that's supposed to work.
But if you ask Grant Shapps today what's going to happen tomorrow, he wouldn't know.
Of course he wouldn't.
But this has to be
the week.
what
happened yesterday.
But this has to be the week that we put.
I don't feel very safe with that lot in charge at the moment. They don't seem very ballsy. They haven't got any big boy pants on. They're all just like, we have to just wait for the most panicky.
Boris has got big boy pants on.
Worst case scenario.
Liar, pants on fire.
No, he's had his big boy pants taken off him by Mrs. Johnson, I think you'll find.
So his big boy pants he has got them in his drawer. He just needs to put them on up to his armpits with Super Boris on and go out and just freaking have a pair of balls.
Did you see the Times today where they said that it was a bit disappointing yesterday in Downing Street because Chris Whitty and Sir Patrick Vallance gave a bit of a downbeat briefing. It's the only kind they give. Have you ever seen Chris Whitty laugh? No. He's not.
You might as well play funeral music whenever they start talking.
He's no Jonathan Van Tam, is he?
I mean, at least Van Tam's got something about him.
Oh, he's absolutely hilarious.
But Vallance and Whitty,
oh
my God,
so dreary.
Just horrendous. Anyway,
it's
time for your third, James.
My third, okay. So my third is, as you may or may not know, if anybody listens to the Early Breakfast Show, they'll know that I'm not necessarily the world's expert on sport.
Yes.
What I do know is that sports people and sports governing boards are generally not very good at navigating that fine line between doing your sport and being good at it and politics.
Yes.
And here we have the ECB, or the English Cricket Board, and they've decided that because somebody's gone through and now selected England players' tweets from when they were a teenager, and they made some... The comments are... They're not even reprehensible. They're wrong, and they're foolish. It could be a heck of a lot worse. And
they're the sort of stupid jokes that teenagers make.
Yes,
I think is how you.
They are, and to be honest, I've heard a lot worse from a lot more senior, whether government ministers or otherwise. So in putting these things in the context, they need to be recognised that we all need to learn that social media is not where you put jokes which are or could be offensive to other people, unless you really have thought them through and decided that's your strategy.
Or unless you're Ricky Gervais. Or in which case you can get away with anything.
Well, that's true. Although I've never found Ricky Gervais funny.
Oh, he's so funny.
Oh, I think he's very funny. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know.
I think it depends.
I'm more of a James Corden sort of Ramesh Ranganathan sort of humour.
Oh, God. Really?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, spare me.
I'm Monty Python, Benny
Yes,
Hill,
Monty Python,
Little Britain.
Benny Hill.
Here's one for you. How weird is this, right? I don't know if you've noticed that the BBC have started rebroadcasting Fawlty Towers.
Yes, love that.
Oh.
I mean, I don't quite understand, though. I mean, I'm very happy they're doing it, but I don't quite understand their new policies on wokeness and broadcasting old episodes
Well,
of
they're
Fawlty
making
Towers.
a point, aren't they? Oh, no, we're not woke.
Yeah, but they are though.
Well, of course we know that they are. And we know
So
that
how are
they're a
they
ridiculous
broadcasting,
organisation.
Programs which have quite a lot of offensive terms in them about foreigners.
They probably bleep them out now. It's
They
just gonna be
don't.
a show of
No, I was watching it last night. I started watching it.
But I think that we should have a situation where we don't do that and we stop the cancelling and we will make sure that, say for example, if somebody is going to become an international sports person or a celebrity, or and by all means go through the social medias, that either there should be help for somebody to go through it and to eradicate and get rid of stuff, and then secondly they need
I believe it's called scrubbing.
Yes, scrubbing. Or, people need to be able to learn from things. In the same way that we can have a lovely conversation about Prince Harry. Here's the guy who dressed up in a Nazi uniform. Here's the guy who's made all sorts of jokes and called his colleagues things that he shouldn't do. And yet he's the Prince of Woke. So if he can have done that stuff, which is far worse than this cricketer, by the way, has performed, said or done.
Ollie Robinson,
And we've got to stop this kind of overreaction.
But it's cruel. It's actually incredibly cruel to take a young man's life and career and destroy it publicly for something he put on as a teenager. God forbid anything I ever wrote as a teenager was down anywhere, or photos, or this, that, and the other.
I'm so old that, in fact, I was still writing on typewrites when I was a
So
teenager.
right.
I'm surprised they had those.
But I'm glad the government stepped in and said, this is wrong. It's so wrong. They should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, well, it gets worse though. It gets worse.
They've now
found somebody who was tweeting when he was 15, right? And they haven't named him because of his the fact that he was underage at the time. Huh? But apparently he was named on the Wisden's website for a period of time. So there will be some people who know who it is. I don't know who it is. And even if I did know, I don't know much about cricket, so I probably wouldn't recognise him anyway. But they've now made a big hole for themselves because they made him apologise, then suspended him, right? So he's now currently suspended from international duty, is Ollie Robinson. And now this other guy will have to be suspended because they've now made that particular kind of, yardstick for themselves. So they'll have to do it to everyone.
And the left-wing Islamist appeasers are now saying, oh, well, this is exactly what happened with Shamima Begum. They were both 15, and we must just...
Yes.
How can you compare a silly tweet to a 15-year-old who went away committed?
Well, actually, but funnily enough, you can compare it because the people who think that he should be castigated for making racist remarks think that it's unforgivable. But she can be forgiven for joining a death cult because she was
as an adult, she showed absolutely no remorse. So it doesn't matter if she's 15.
No,
she just shows no remorse.
But I'm saying that the two things don't add up. We have to also throw the football world into this as well.
Absolutely. The whole taking the knee thing. Will you stop it?
Yeah, well, Gareth Southgate doesn't seem to understand. Somebody actually said to me, and we'll get to the Labour Party in a bit, the football business is now doing to its fans what Labour did to its voters.
Yes, exactly.
Basically, they're ashamed of you. They don't really want you to be there. Yeah. We think you might be a bit racist, because you either voted for Brexit or because you booed taking the knee. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I was quite disturbed by Southgate's kind of holier-than-thou attitude when he gave this press conference. He said, we don't want to be answering questions about this throughout the tournament. We just want to talk about football.
But then
it's not about politics. Well, in that case, don't take the bloody knee then.
Don't take the knee and don't make political statements.
And also, he talks about the group, right, like some kind of Handmaid's Tale. We all agree. Well, what happens if somebody comes into the team that doesn't want to take the knee? What happens then? What do you do then? Do you say you can't play? Do you say you're not allowed to play for your country because you won't do this ridiculous gesture? They've even admitted it's a gesture.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing, is that if you really want to tackle racism, not just in society but in sport and elsewhere, you've got to stop these... they're almost kind of... as you say, the gestures, but they're also they're riling people in the wrong way.
Yes,
and they're almost celebrating. I don't know that we can be part of this, and we're going to sort of make a point about the difference, as opposed to. You get rid of racism when you stop seeing people's colour or making decisions based on things that you shouldn't. Let's just have a look at, shall we say, somebody's talent. Are you talented? Are you going to work hard? Are you going to be able to work with other people? Are you going to be able to perform incredible sort of miracles, whatever you do? And that's why we'll recruit you, we'll appoint you, we'll train you, whatever. And I don't care what background you come from. Have you got the skill and the talent? Yes, please, thank you. We'll have you. That's what we've got to do. That's what we've got to pick out.
But also, as you make, Gareth is not sounding like the sharpest crayon in the box either, because he's literally saying it's got nothing to do with BLM, right? And yet, hang on, he's chosen the signature gesture of a political Marxist movement as their anti-racism gesture. What about linking arms?
Yes, exactly.
What about, like they did with Millwall and
they could have done any number of other things.
Or guess what? They could have invented their own thing.
Stupid.
That's what I mean.
Why choose
but instead, he decided to be
charged?
cussed and to be immovable and to say, well, we're going to keep doing it. whether you like it or not. And it's like, well, do you know, that's actually going to cause a problem, because there will be people watching these games in pubs, in public spaces. You know, people will be drinking, but there will be people getting into rows about this, because if you start booing television sets in public and everyone's drinking, you know where that's going to end up. It's going to end up with punch-ups.
People catching COVID.
Well,
I mean, you know, you don't want people booing.
Well, it's all right if they're wearing masks, though. You can't catch it, apparently, if you wear a mask.
Oh, right, yeah.
But, I mean, the other thing's interesting is the World Cup in next year is in Qatar, right? 2022.
There were definitely no bungs involved there, were there?
No, there were absolutely no bungs involved there, because FIFA is a very fine and upstanding organisation. It certainly does not contain anybody corrupt whatsoever.
And there's definitely no gravy train.
No, absolutely not.
And there's no one on it.
So I'll tell you what's interesting about Qatar. They throw homosexuals into jail. You're not allowed to be a homosexual in Qatar. You're also probably not really very likely to do terribly well if you happen to be somebody from Black Lives Matter in Qatar. So I wonder whether any of these footballers will refuse to go to Qatar to play in the World Cup because it's such a ghastly place.
I doubt it, because that virtue signalling doesn't promote them, and their PR stunt people don't give them points, brownie points, for doing these gimmicks. And what's worse is I feel like British sport is under attack.
Yeah.
And what I feel is like the players are turning against their fans everywhere. And where is it going to end? Is Wimbledon, the players are going to have to start kneeling before a game?
Yeah.
Golf? Where
Also,
does it
I don't
end?
really
And
need
if
to
they
be
don't,
told by somebody with 5 Lamborghinis that we need to have a more equal society. You know,
so
really
detestable.
Thanks for that.
They've got it wrong.
you know,
But I
how's the offshore fund
I
coming
do
along?
enjoy the whole sporting sort of dichotomy between, you know, the performance and the amount of money and the money that's really driving it, and then this, you know, this sort of wanting to be.
Well, you know, there is another aspect to this which I only discovered the other day. Not that I didn't know it before, but I'd sort of forgotten. We actually give the English FA, who run England football, £30 million a year of taxpayers' money. So they're not just representing their own views, they're not just representing Gareth and his band of merry men, they're actually representing this country.
Yeah.
Now, if this country is comfortable with them doing that, then fine, but I don't think we are.
No.
And I don't think the fans are. So therefore, they need to stop. It's as simple as that.
But that's what happens when you have organisations which are run by a whole load of stuffed appointed shirts.
Who are desperate to now look as if they know what they're doing.
Yeah, but this is what we've got in every organisation, where they've got the spare time and the money. We've got a lot of gesture politics going, which is about trying to say the right thing, do the right thing. No, just say you're not going to be racist, you're not going to be homophobic, you're not going to be discriminatory, and then you move on. And then you make sure that anybody who is, you know, removed from office or post or whatever it may be, or you give them some education. I don't mind either, because sometimes people make mistakes. Make sure that we move on as a society.
The whole business of sport has become overtaken by these maniacs. I mean, I was watching TV News the other night, and there was they were showing a clip from some cricket match. It might have been the New Zealand Test, I don't know. But they're all wearing these shirts that say, "We stand together against sexism."
Oh, like, God, no, don't bring women into this.
Why are you wearing that on the back of your shirt when you play a cricket match?
And they had such tantrums when we wanted them to wear the poppy or pay some kind of respects to our armed forces and veterans. They won't do that. No, but they like the old freaking Marxists, defund the police, you know, take down the patriarchy and destroy the nuclear family.
Yeah.
This is what they're kneeling for. And they're stupid if they think people don't connect that kneel with that political
Everybody
movement.
enjoys a nuclear family.
Yeah, I've destroyed one or two of those.
That's so revolutionary.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's another story. Anyway, your third nominee.
My
Belinda.
third nominee actually is a bit cringeworthy. It's New Look.
Oh, yes.
The clothing high street shop. And I know it's from last week, but
it's
I
good,
mean,
because
it's got to
I
be
wouldn't have
said
thought of
because
that.
it
Do you
is-
shop there?
Yes, I used to a lot actually, and now I've got 4 teenage girls. So this is why this story really makes me a bit sick. So they've started to sell padded bikini bras for little 9-year-old girls.
That's not right.
Which you never see, by the way. You've never heard of sort of boys' pants or trunks being filled out with foam to make their meat and 2 veg look bigger. But for little girls, it's quite all right. Let's enhance the breasts of prepubescent little girls. Because who needs a childhood anyway? This is adults' twisted, weird fetish.
Did you see, though, there was a defence of this that I almost understood.
I don't.
And the defence
There
of
is
this...
no defence.
There is no defence.
The defence of it that I almost understood is that these were designed for an age group. So they were designed for an age group. Now, listen, I am
What do you mean
not
an age group?
So for those who were slightly
careful
older,
here.
who had not developed perhaps as much as they would
Oh
like
my
to
God,
have
this
done.
makes me throw up.
Yeah.
I
I know.
can't take
That
this.
is what they were saying that they were trying to
There's no
achieve.
defence because it's about sex. Why would you pad out a little girl's bra. It is
No,
sex
you wouldn't.
sells. And there's no childhood as it is anyway for these poor kids. People make money. The fat cats are lining their pockets with children who are surrounded by rappers, girls covered in oil with nipple tassels, talking about riding every guy in town.
But hang on a second. But
Now
have we
they've
got
clothes
ourselves?
shops.
But, I know, but have we got ourselves into a position where those sorts of products either are on sale or there is a demand for them because we have almost allowed children to become objectified because they're spending so much time on their phones and looking at things and they want to be like that
so
person.
let's encourage it then.
No, I'm not saying that we should
Why
encourage
would you
it.
exploit that, though?
But exactly,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that have we ended up in this place
Well, no.
because of all the
People
social
are
and
being
digital media?
Well, but so then say actually no. As adults, it's our duty to protect children and say this is enough. And
Yeah.
and the worst of it is for me is who does it benefit apart from the people who are earning profits out of sexualizing children? Pedos and pervs.
Yeah.
No dad or man or woman or mother wants their little girl photographed on
No,
the
of course
beach
not.
by a load of pedos who are going to then sell their photos on the dark web.
No.
Because this is what happens
Yeah.
when children are looking sexualized, especially girls. People take photos, they go on the
Yeah.
dark web, and it's a horrific, children being sexualized more than ever now. Young boys from the age of 8 are being exposed to violent porn, that's their sex education. Girls are being sold, value yourself on your tits and ass from the age of 9. And unless we, as families and parents, say enough,
Yeah.
I know I sound
And you would
fussy, but
expect,
it's hurting and
no, but
damaging
also you would
children.
expect, would you not, a responsible organisation and
Yeah.
big company that sells clothing not to be doing that? You just
Yeah.
wouldn't, would you?
Because girls are susceptible. Little girls are too young to understand
Yeah.
the consequences of trying to be sexy.
I mean, what are they going to do next?
So
Stockings and
we can't
suspenders
leave
for
it to them.
9-year-olds or
Yeah,
something?
I mean, older
I
women
know, I
can
know
wear
you
what
say
they
you
like.
can't leave it to them, but then also you've got to deal with some of the other root cause problems because you mentioned 2 of them, and one of them is certainly when I was growing up, if you had elder brothers, you knew that porn existed, but you certainly didn't have the onslaught of stuff that's available
The
and it's there, and
violent porn that's on
no
there,
one's
yeah.
done anything about it, and it's
Well,
just
you
there.
can't do anything about it because it's there. The
Well,
point is you could
you
try.
probably could if
well,
you wanted
can.
to.
I mean, there are such things as shields. You know about this.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
parent knows about, internet shields. They don't work because if kids want to look at something, they'll find it. They will. It's a simple.
It's a giant experiment that will have consequences that we
absolutely
don't
will.
even understand.
But the social and digital media of the amount of children who are using TikToks and doing things and the videos and the whole sexualization, if you like, of boys and girls has been going on successively, probably since pop culture arrived.
Yeah.
It's been getting worse and more prolific,
Yes.
and the question is, well, what do we
Yes,
do about
but
it?
the point is that
And this
I
is a
think-
manifestation of it.
Yeah, but
Well,
I
so
think-
why-
I think
why
that-
are
I think
shops
this is
fueling
yeah, I know, but I think this is a symptom, not a cause.
No, it's a cause,
No, I
and it's
think
something
they're-
that doesn't
they're
have to be a
offering-
cause.
yeah.
Because you can have all those other causes you talk about. Doesn't mean you add more in. Doesn't
Oh,
mean
I
if you're
agree.
a responsible
Listen, I'm not
company-
trying to defend them,
If
but
you're
I
a
think that they should be
responsible,
gone.
no, if you're a responsible company, you don't sell that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Agreed.
You just don't, and
Yeah.
you don't
All
even
I'm
think
saying-
it's a good
Look,
idea
look
to
how
sell
they
it.
are about climate change.
Yeah,
We want to be sustainable. Oh, an environment.
And then they
blah,
go and
blah,
make it in
blah.
some
Oh, we want-
Indonesian sweatshop.
We
Yeah,
want
right.
unisex changing rooms. Blah blah blah. But let's pornize. What is it? Pornifies. What's the word? Little girls. Pornographize.
There you go.
Tiny little children.
I know.
Who it's disgusting and it's hypocritical.
It is.
These clothing shops. And I think I hate to sound like I'm like a Victorian
No, you're
hellfire.
not. No, you're not.
But I see the damage. I brought up 4 girls,
You're
and I
not
see the
sounding
world
like-
they're living
Are we
in.
going back to the Victorian times? I think we should.
Listen, there was a
little
lot of
bit
good
that
things
would-
that
I think
happened
it would
in
be
the
nice,
Victorian
the sort of
times.
turn of the heel and show of the collarbone to get the boys going.
I wouldn't know. Maybe a cup of tea.
Yeah, cup of tea, a
Scone.
little trip to the beach. I know it's covered in rubble and litter. I'm going to go back to one of my old favourites, I'm afraid, Sir Keir Starmer, or Rodney,
Oh,
as I
you
like
like
to call him.
Oh,
Rodders.
Rodney.
Rodders. you
Rodders.
plonker. Because not only has he revamped his image by appearing on Piers Morgan's
Yes,
Life
he
Stories,
has.
not only has he
Very
decided
interesting,
to,
I felt on
yeah,
that.
to
Very
reveal
interesting.
his middle name is Rodney, and to then reveal he hated it so much that he had it removed from his wedding vows, which is kind of a weird thing to do, it seems to me. But all of the result of all of this new sort of look for Rodders has meant that his popularity rating has actually gone even further down.
Poor
Rather
Rodders.
than up. And he's now so unpopular. He's as unpopular as Jeremy Corbyn ever was at the base of his unpopularity.
And that is really,
That's
I mean,
quite an
I would say
achievement.
I'm surprised that you're picking that as plank, because I think that's a real achievement.
Well, it's-
I mean, to achieve
it will be tragically
Corbyn
for
levels
Rodders.
of unpopularity
For
is
Rodders,
absolutely
yeah.
astonishing.
For Rodders, it will be his only achievement because they're already in the Labour Party saying that Andy Burnham, who's lost the leadership battle twice,
God, yeah.
is even more popular than he is, right? Barely a quarter of the public, 24%, think he has what it takes to be a good Prime Minister. He's 13 points behind Andy Burnham.
Oh, bless him.
Never mind Boris Johnson, who's somewhere up in the 70s, right?
Which
He's
is
also,
remarkable.
Among Labour supporters, less than half of him think he's got what it takes. 59% of them like Andy Burnham. 22% of the public are satisfied with Keir Starmer, which is down 14 points since April.
There needs to be a Keir Starmer blues song.
I mean, it's
goes,
literally,
I thought I would win.
I know.
Because it's so depressing.
So Keir's score for being a capable leader has plummeted 18 points since September. He's now just on 26%.
But that's because if you have a look at what he's achieved or what he hasn't achieved. So Captain Hindsight was one of my sort of favourite monikers, which I loved it. Yeah. And then what you realise is that, in fact, that was true, and it became even truer because his only good performances at Question Time, Prime Minister's Question Time, is when he was looking at something in a legalised way. And of course, he's a lawyer, and he has that fantastic forensic training and being able to ask.
But he doesn't, though.
No.
Well,
he really doesn't.
On certain things, on the pass, he's quite good at. Can be.
No,
quite
do
good
you know
at
what he's good
questions.
at? He's quite good at putting together about 4 questions, and then the 5th one's the wrong one every time. I'm surprised he managed to get any convictions at all.
Now, I don't want to be too rude about lawyers, but lawyers are normally quite good at doing what they're told.
Be careful what you say about lawyers in front of Belinda, by the way.
Oh,
are you a lawyer by training?
Well,
I'm from a family of lawyers.
I married one.
No, she married one.
That's fine.
I did EU law at Masters, so that makes me a bit
That's fine. Look, I come from a family of lawyers. There are plenty of lawyers in my life. I've worked. Look, they do a useful function.
They have benefits.
They have benefits, and they have a lot of money.
Not all lawyers are good. That's the point.
First of all, not all lawyers are good. Secondly, if you are of a legal mind, it means that you go right into the detail and you cannot see the bigger picture. And I'm afraid if you're going to be the leader of a party, and I don't care which political party or which angle, at least Corbyn had a vision. Nobody liked that vision, but he had a vision.
And he had the courage of his conviction.
He did, and he remained anti-Semitic throughout. So
he stuck to it.
He stuck to it. I mean,
no surrender for him.
There definitely wasn't surrender. Whereas, and that's why Boris Johnson is successful. Boris sees the big picture. Yeah. He's able to identify it. He's able to put it in a way that people can like and grasp and go for it and support it. And then I just wish he was slightly better at picking the minions to execute, because they're not so good at that.
That's true. So who then? Is Tony Blair making a comeback? Do you think?
No.
I mean, I can't see a Labour leader out there that has exactly what you're talking about, seeing the bigger picture, some kind of grand, charismatic,
Well, the guy who
guy
would be great, but who will never get a chance at it, is Brendan Chilton, that we have on our show quite a bit. He's actually from Labour Leave. He was part of the Labour Party that wanted to leave the European Union. And he's a former councillor from Ashford in Kent.
Not a chance.
But I mean, he's quite well thought of in the party, funnily enough, but by the wrong part of the party. Because the parliamentary party would never have him in.
No.
But he would win an election in any one of the northern red wall seats, because he believes in Brexit, and he believes in the old-fashioned values of the Labour Party, which is actually to represent those people that you say no longer exist, the working class.
I don't think they exist certainly in the way that Labour would like them to. I think Andy Burnham could create some damage, but I think the problem is that he has a certain kind of support, certain kind of support in a certain area, and then that's it.
Yeah, it's the same like Sadiq Khan. I think he's probably got aspirations and hopes to get the top job. But
I hope he does get the top job, because his ability is
forever.
I mean,
Burnham is like one of those guys who's on the rebound tour of Spandau Ballet. He puts on a polo neck and thinks
so Keir Starmer, though, in a way, they make a nice little boy band.
They do make a nice little boy band. But that was the other thing.
But
without Jason.
Look, Andy Burnham, very good at articulating. I mean, Sadiq useless. Sadiq Khan.
He's above Starmer in the ratings, though. In this
but any human rights lawyer needs to stay well away from power.
But Sadiq Khan, how he can... He's fought his whole life to try and make better public transport, and he's having to make massive cuts. He hasn't stood up for them very well. He spent all their money on vanity projects and cycle lanes, and God only knows what else.
No traffic neighbourhoods.
I mean, no traffic neighbourhoods. Have you seen all the plant pots everywhere? People have come back to their city that they've been banished from for 40 months, and they found that all the usual roads have been cut off. They can't get through. They can't park anywhere. Things aren't being picked up. There are holes in the road. I mean, the whole thing is a disaster.
Yeah, it is.
And mostly because of Sadiq useless.
Sadiq useless.
Sadiq also useless. Who has quite high up the old table of planks of the year, but he hasn't been in it this week for that reason.
So Keir is for life then?
I think Keir is definitely riding high. Funnily enough, just to show how even-handed Plank of the Week is, at the moment, in the Plank of the Year ratings, Boris and Keir Starmer are on the same level.
Oh, wow.
Exactly the same number of points.
That's very nice and balanced.
Isn't it? Just
how balanced?
Just very, very, very good. Now, so you might remember this is how it works. We have to get the 9 down to 3.
Yes.
So we all have to pick our favourite one of each. So do you want to start with Belinda's, and you pick her pick your favourite one of her three. So your
Priti
three.
Useless Patel.
Yes.
Sir Snobby Geldof.
Yes.
And New Look Boobies for prepubescent girls.
Right. You see, the new look thing, although I get the passion, I think that's a symptom, not the cause. So I'm afraid they're gone.
Okay.
So it's between Pretty Useless and it's...
I love that.
Sir Snobby Geldof.
I'm going to have to go for Pretty Useless, mostly because I've really enjoyed that. And I think that was the one that probably riles more people. And I think if you're going for Plankorama, it's the one that annoys the most people, or alternatively something that we suddenly realise that we should be annoyed about. And I think we should be annoyed about that. So it hits both of my bells.
Now, I should say, by the way, before we go any further, that we will once again carry over Harry and Meghan. Congratulations, guys, for having another baby. Lily
5 months off.
Yes.
Lily
You can only do that.
Diana.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Mountbatten Windsor.
Mountbatten Windsor.
But also, how...
Not because they want her to make any money in the future.
Most people can't afford to do that. Welcome to the real world.
Yeah.
Oh, Harry,
Parental
do you really
leave.
understand the real world? Well, we've got staff to pay for, blah, blah, hot and cold running staff and the things and the stuff and the security and living in our God knows how many million
Do you
pounds.
think he's going to put himself on furlough?
Well, he never lost
What
his
from?
job because of the blooming Hitler and Nazi stuff he did.
no.
And as part of it was privilege-free speech for him.
Yeah, absolutely
Anyway.
right.
Anyway, congratulations though, lovely baby.
Congratulations for saying. I think
It's only a good thing.
They should just have a
carry
little
them
sort of like they should have to have a little sort of memorial that you could just sort of put on the bench.
Listen, if he's going to stop talking for 5 months, I salute him.
Yeah.
And if she's not going to appear on video for 5 months, I'm
Oh,
more
but
than
she's
happy.
just released
That's
that
a good thing.
wretched book that's crap.
Oh.
The book, what was it about the father and the child
called?
relationship?
It's actually called The Plank,
It's
isn't
the
it?
bench, the bench.
Oh, the bench.
When her
It should be
relationship
called
with
The
her
Plank.
father is probably one of the most famous bad relationships you could
Exactly.
ever have.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, bless
And she's
her.
fallen out with the whole of her in-laws.
Right. Also, he
I mean, well
slagged off,
done.
and also
What a
he
problem.
slagged off his own father as well.
Yeah,
So that's
but
a great
they're not
one,
the
isn't
prime sort of shining examples
No.
of family relations.
No,
I'm
exactly.
afraid not.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
let's create
so-
our own family.
Anyway.
It's going to be lovely.
No, I know.
Yeah, and
So
slag
do you
off
want to
everybody
pick
else.
my best one of my three?
so
So
let-
mine is Keir Starmer, Rodders,
Rodders.
Grant Shapps,
Oh.
and Jenny Eclair.
Oh, I'm Jenny Eclair all the way from
Jenny
me.
Eclair?
I don't know if
No, it's your choice.
is it my choice? Just
can
because
choose.
she epitomises all that I think has been wrong with this sort of snitching, bitching, hateful
Yes.
rhetoric against
Judging as well.
judging and ostracising.
Yeah.
You are no longer pure enough to be
Right.
in my pure
Get out of my
God
train
circle.
carriage.
It's like we're all heretics
Yeah.
and they're the saints. So she gets it from me
Okay,
because
good.
she
right.
reflects what's going on
Okay,
in
so
other
I get to choose
areas as
yours
well.
So you do get to choose mine.
Yeah.
So I've got, blimey, who have I got?
I know the cricket people because I was like,
Yes,
oh,
so
I
we've got
agree,
the
yeah.
ECB.
Yes.
We've got Maros Sefkovic. Is that his name?
Whatever his name is, yeah. The EU bloke.
The EU
Yeah,
bloke.
don't
Bloke
slip of
for
a
the
tongue with that
EU.
surname.
Yeah, that one.
Captain Sausage.
Captain Sausage. So we've got Captain Sausage. We've got Captain Shirt Off.
Oh, yes.
And we've got the ECB.
Yeah, I think it's got to be the ECB, hasn't
Yeah.
it? I mean,
Right.
this particular week,
Oh,
it has
this
got
week.
to
Yeah,
be.
bullying, career destroying that poor chap,
Yeah.
Ollie. No,
I mean, I
it's
feel in
ECB.
some ways slightly guilty that we haven't given Gareth Southgate a special mention, but we have given him a special
Yeah, I
mention.
said he
We
wasn't
have.
the sharpest crayon in the box.
I mean, I mean, we could have made him one of the planks, but we'll kind of put him under the same umbrella, I think,
Yeah.
maybe as ECB.
Imagine turning on his fans like that.
I
I don't
know.
think he's done now.
Oh, they
He's-
also
he's-
paid
yeah.
their own money to go and watch the game.
Can't
you
he be
know?
a mini plank? Like
Yeah,
something
we might
else?
have
A planklet.
We might have to have a sort of
Planklet.
plank appendix.
Plank arena.
Unless, of course, he's small and insignificant, and you call him Plankton.
Plankton, very good.
Oh, look at that.
That would work
Okay,
on very many
Gaza,
levels, actually.
you're
So
Plankton.
many
That would
levels.
work on lots of levels, yeah. So, Priti Patel, the
Yeah.
ECB, and Jenny Eclair, those are the three.
Oh my god.
You
What
know,
a collection.
It's a good one. This
It
is good.
This is good.
This is good. She hasn't been in it that much, actually, I don't
Yeah.
think, over the course of time. So, I mean, I would tend to go with the ECB only because it's their week, it seems to me.
Yeah.
Priti Patel, I think, might get nominated again.
She will get nominated plenty of times.
I do.
I think she's a recurring. You know, she's in the sort of recurring.
All talk and no trousers.
And the thing is that because I mean Jenny Eclair, I think she was funny for about 1 week in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Like Terry Christian. But
Yeah,
look at
he
him.
was-
He's like, oh no.
Even he can't remember that.
No.
Yeah. No. So and the
For all
thing
sorts
is,
of reasons.
and so you know the irrelevance means that it's just like
Yeah.
you know some irrelevant, somewhat past it, somewhat has been.
Yeah.
has used some expletives and got some publicity.
I didn't say, actually, she did delete the tweet after a while because she got so much grief for it.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
not
not because she
surprised.
didn't believe it,
No.
just because she got grief for it, so it doesn't count.
She put one out saying, I've decided to delete the tweet because I maybe was wrong to use such foul language.
Yeah, but hashtag be kind.
But be kind.
I'm with the cricket. The ECB,
Yeah.
for me, are cruel in what they're doing to this poor boy,
I
Ollie.
think so.
And also it sets a terribly dangerous precedent
Yeah.
for all the other young boys hoping to join
I think
the
so.
game.
Should we make Pretty
yeah.
Useless number 2 then?
Yes.
I think we should.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, obviously.
Jenny Eclair gets bumped down to 3 on the grounds of irrelevance.
Irrelevance, exactly.
She's
And
not
we've given her
important
enough platform now. We should no more oxygen for
This is
Jenny.
the most publicity she's had in about 10 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. So, England Cricket Board then. Thank you very much, both of you. Plank of the week. I hope you don't make it for next week. I hope you fix up your situation. But the ECB, the England Cricket Board, absolute planks. Well done. Thanks to James Max and Belinda Lucy. We'll see you next time.